Trust me, all the story I'm telling you right now, I can tell you all the highlights and the glory points of where I've graduated to and what I've done. Yes, I'm not in prison. No, I'm not dead. Yes, there's a lot of things I'm not, and I am in a better place, gratefully. But I'm still challenged, which is
Oh,
why
yeah.
every day I have to still get up and do my affirmations, my meditation, my journal, my reading. Every day I got to feed my mind with something positive. Because the moment I stop doing it, oh, trust me, the dark shit comes crawling back out again.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome to the show, Beyond Boundaries. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for the offer. It's such a great opportunity to plug in with you. You and Eric are my idols. I love you guys, even though it's been a short amount of time that honestly we've been connected, but I feel like it's a massive amount of time, like years. It's one of those relationships. So grateful
Yeah,
to do this. Thank you.
lifetimes. I feel like I've known you for multiple lives.
Right?
It's
Like in a previous life.
instant. Absolutely. So
Similar.
Chris is a really good friend of ours. We met him like 2 years ago, about 2 years ago,
Yeah,
maybe
give or
not quite
take.
that
Yeah.
long ago. And you're just a true inspiration to so many people. And I don't want to go and tell too much of your story. So let's just hop in. And first of all, tell me, Chris, like a little bit about what you do today.
Today, currently, my role is that I have created and built an international real estate team all over the country, currently in 32 states in the mainland. Here, a big portion right here in Hawaii, on every island, I think roughly around 400 or so, give or take, real estate brokers in Maui, Kauai, Big Island, and Oahu, and also in 3 different countries internationally. So that is my current role, where I am in the growth portion of helping groom and develop more leaders in the real estate sector. Um, After 21 years this business, 22 years, kind of give or take. I don't even know anymore, but yeah, to the point where, this is kind of where I have transcended and ended up at this point. So super grateful and blessed to be here, Phil. Thanks, Roll.
Yeah, it's totally impressive, everything that you've accomplished and what you're continuing to do for real estate, the real estate industry in general. What you're doing for you're lifting it up, the standards up, and I appreciate that. Being a fellow realtor for so many years, I do appreciate that. But I know it hasn't always been rainbows and unicorns for you. And I know you've
Yeah.
had to go through a lot of tough times to get to where you are. So if you don't mind, let's just like
Jump in,
jump
huh?
right in to
All
the
right.
beginning. You want to
Oh, you know me.
tell
Stories are my favorite. You know what? I can get probably really, involved in, because that's my thing, my passion. I'm very huge into the emotional mindset piece, very in touch with my emotions, and which is unlike most men, right? Right? We're usually the hardcore 2x4 that has to stay very rigid because
yeah,
we don't want to state vulnerability. Transparency is never one of our best qualities either, because we don't
yeah,
want to feel like we're lack of. So you know what? I think that comes from a lot of challenging issues in life, but you grow up in, that creates this ability to be vulnerable and
yes,
transparent, right?
yeah,
And which I believe are the 2 greatest characteristics, ultimately, I think, initially for leadership, is transparency and vulnerability. Right? I think the 2 greatest characteristics ever in a leader. So, how far you want to go back to childhood? Childhood was probably the worst part. Honestly, it's interesting. I had this conversation the other day with somebody who, most people could probably go back and recollect a few things in their life. Maybe you can as well, and go back and pinpoint things in your life as a child, right?
yeah.
I actually have a complete black, dark screen of my entire childhood life, to be honest. Like, I do not remember bits and pieces, like any of it, to be honest. And I think I've done a lot of therapy in my life, in my early 40s, and a lot of it was attributed, I think, from the fact that there was so much trauma in my life as a child. And let's put this into perspective. I wasn't like the kid who was shoved in their closet and not fed. I wasn't abused. Although in the 70s, when our parents treated us was probably compared to abuse to these days, if you're a kid in the 2023.
Yeah. Well,
You and I
abuse
both.
isn't always just when you get bruises and broken bones. Sometimes, the abuse, the emotional abuse is sometimes worse. It lingers on a lot longer
Oh, 100%.
Sounds
I mean,
fine.
the physical abuse, your wounds will go away. The bruises will
Yeah.
go away and heal. It's the mental that you get, the emotional piece that taps into that builds into your subconscious vault that literally
Mhm.
just solidifies and concretes itself in there like with rebar.
Yeah.
And man, it takes, as you get older, it's more challenging to eliminate it or to work through it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I go back. I'm huge on that. Like that is my biggest piece in life is mindset, personal development and self-care. That's where I'm at, which is kind of my thing. But childhood is born in California. My family actually roots though are initially from Hawaii here. My
Uh-huh.
mom born and raised in Eva Beach in Oahu.
Mhm.
She made her way to the mainland when she was probably 16-ish or 17. Met my dad. I don't know how that story even happened, but I was actually born and raised in Turlock, which is in the Central Valley of California. For those
Okay.
who do know it, I'm sorry you do know that because it's not a place of greatest of ambiances. That's by any means. I call it like the armpit of California, like close to
Mhm.
Fresno. So, but I had a very challenging childhood because I grew up instantly. The moment I actually was born, my parents decided to become a Jehovah's Witness, which is, in my opinion, purely, I guess I could state right here, in my opinion, is a cult.
Mhm.
And for those that are listening, I apologize if I may have, inadvertently made you upset, but that is kind of my belief to this day. It really is a cult. So I was very rebellious to that from the get go.
Mhm.
And I was like the black sheep, always the black sheep. I was the kid that went left where everybody else went right. And my dad, honestly, didn't even know how to deal with me. I think the other siblings, I was the youngest of four, so my other siblings just kind of fell right into the groove and had no problem. My dad had no problem, and here I come, raising dust, kicking up cans, and causing ruckus. Which, in hindsight, I come to find out that was my dad actually when he was a kid. So this is the full course. They say your parents, you're going to get paid back 100% more from your kids. And I was that kid that made my dad's life miserable,
Mhm.
whereas the other siblings kind of just were so easy. So, I think at that point, and then as we all know, the fourth kid, the last kid, always pretty much is kind of like fend for yourself. The
Right.
first three, the first two, second, yeah, then it's like fourth one. All right, whatever. We'll give him whatever name. We'll let him do whatever he want. Kind of like just do your thing. And I was such a very precarious child. Like I was always what's that for? Why is that happening? Who? Why? What? When? Where? How? Asking a ton of questions. And I was not suffice with just well, I'm your parent, I told you to do it, that's why, right? Didn't
Right.
work for me. So I've been that kind of very entrepreneurial, very visionary type mentality from
Mhm.
probably that childhood life. But the biggest problem, well, I'll say a problem, I just mentioned earlier, like the worst things that happen in your life, ultimately in the end, you realize that were great blessings in disguise. Was that, for those who are familiar with that religion, we were required to go do things that, quite honestly, as a 7, 8-year-old child, you just don't do. It's not normal. To go sit there on a Saturday and go knock on doors dressed up in a suit, and get ridiculed and made fun of and judged by your peers and friends in schools, because we would go in neighborhoods where I would go to school. So all the
Mhm.
kids on Saturdays that were at home watching cartoons, I'm there knocking on their door, right? And trying to speak the word of God. And I'm not opposed to that. Again, I'm not here to talk about religion, but just at that point in my life, at a 7, 8-year-old child, it was not something that you wanted to do. And so there was a lot of pieces. So again, people that are familiar with that, you couldn't do a lot of things in that religion. You couldn't celebrate Christmas. You couldn't celebrate birthdays. You couldn't do anything that was the same as anybody else, honestly, that you were immersed in that environment from school. So instantly, I was a child who didn't fit in anywhere.
Mhm.
And my dad and my mom, honestly, just kind of backdate, my mom kind of raised her 5 brothers here in Hawaii,
Mhm.
when she was like 10, 12 years old back then, which was not normal either, but she did it. And, by the time she had us as kids, I'm guessing she was probably just done and
Yeah.
honestly kind of checked out. Um, and from a variety of things, honestly, that I probably wasn't even aware of as a kid, just, adult things that were going on. And my dad was about as emotional as a 2x4.
Mhm.
So I had a better chance of getting a splinter from him than actually a hug or a love or attention, right? So, put those two combinations together, and ultimately it was, high levels of abandonment, high levels of lack of validation, high levels of lack of approval, worthiness, self-worth. I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
And then you really stack on the other parts of it where you go to school and you're in an environment where you're made fun of and ridiculed because you don't celebrate birthdays, you don't do holidays, you can't celebrate Christmas, you don't dress up and trick or treat. Why are you so different, Chris? You know, why do you come knock on our doors on Saturday for? What are you trying to talk to our family? Like, it was all those questions that, you know, you're like, oh my God, you just wanted to crawl up in a corner, right? And not be seen or recognized, because if you did, it was you having to justify or validate or answer questions that you didn't want to really answer.
Right.
And so, right. So I spent a majority of my life as a kid very, very solo, very introverted, which is quite polar opposite to people who know me today. You know, I am the guy who's a social bunny who will go into a group of people that I don't even know and come out with brand new friends. And I was not like that in the beginning. I absolutely was not. There was a whole lot of that growing up that just kind of made me very recluse and just closed off and just to myself. So yeah, very interesting childhood life, tons of abandonment, tons of challenges, and everybody's got stories, right? We all got stories. But that's how my beginning started. That is the foundation and core of who I was and what I was about, and my behavioral and makeup of my self-worth. So it wasn't like you could put it into a dish and say, wow, this was some amazing makeup, a recipe of like success to be. This was a recipe for disaster. You know, and then I throw in the fact that my mom passed away when I was 15. My dad was even more recluse and pulled away. Like, if he was not existing then, he was completely non-existing after my mom passed away. He just sunk into a level of depression too. And we were not even like known we were around, honestly. So at 15, I actually moved out of my house. I was out on my own and moved in with a friend of mine. So I was very quickly at 15 learning to live life like the school of hard knocks, like how to be an adult at 15. Not things that a normal 15-year-old kid should be going through, honestly. So, you know, we expedite that. And again, like I said, a lot of things though that I had gone through back then has now made me a very resilient person today. But a lot of those qualities that I resented back then, now I look at myself today and I realize, my God, a lot of these qualities have helped me become a stronger person, and it made me the person I am as far as a leader and the things I can do today. But so yeah, that was a very challenging life that I got into. And honestly, the only option I had to get into at 15, and I quit going to school. Honestly, I wasn't that kid who went to school. And I took night classes. I had to take night courses and in-home school studies, which you know what that means. That means I didn't do it at all. That means I cheated on everything and just basically got it done. You know, we had to get all our work done for like a 2-week period and come back and show it to our teacher. And there we go. I didn't do any of it. I just, like, my buddy was helping me. I just, you know, it wasn't even about me learning anything. It was about me just getting it done. And so yeah, I wasn't a very scholastic individual. I wasn't the A student. But I did manage to go and attend a local college at night courses and classes, which I still really didn't pay attention to. But I did it to get the credits. So I got the credits that I built up, so allow me to actually go get and walk with my class to graduate and get my diploma. So I did do that. So I came back, got my diploma, which, God, that wasn't, I don't know how that even happened, to be honest, but I did. And again, it's just, to me, a piece of paper. That's all it really is. It means absolutely nothing in my head of me being like, I suck at math. I'm not really great at a lot of stuff. And everybody's like kind of confused because, my God, you're the Asian. Asians are good at math. Yeah. All right. All my friends, actually, now it's a joke. I'm not even joke, but they're like, hey, Chris, add these numbers. And I'll come up with like 5 million. You know, he's like, wow, you're way off. But it's a good joke. And
everyone should take note of that. Not all Asians are good at math. Got it.
No. And tech. And tech.
And
We're
tech.
not all good at
Thanks
tech
for
either,
that, Chris.
unlike your husband. Yeah. So don't ask me about how to do tech because I'm not good at that either. But I'm great at a lot of other things. But so yeah, that was kind of my beginnings. You know, it really was. It was a very challenging childhood. It wasn't a very ideal environment that I grew up. It wasn't a very productive environment. It wasn't a very conducive environment growing up where I was going to find levels of success. I mean, in a normal situation. So I mean, instantly I had everything in life kind of going against me than actually going for me. Right. But I believe 100%, everybody has choice. Life's about choices, 1,000%, you know, and I very easily could have been susceptible to my environment, my life, my history, and used every bit of that as an excuse, right? To be someone who doesn't succeed in life, someone who doesn't do well in life, somebody who ends up becoming a statistic. You know, somebody who ends up becoming a ward of the state, you know, very easily could have been that. Because I was obviously already going down that path, honestly. And it was kind of enticing to go to because it gave me a sense of attention at the time.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
what do you think it is about you, or maybe it was a moment in your life or a person you met that kind of changed that mindset from I'm not smart, I'm terrible at math, I barely graduated, to, you know what? I want more, instead of going down that route.
Yeah, well, there's two pieces of that. One, I'll tell you one piece of it that really made me go their direction. One was I was hanging out with a long group of friends at the time. And I was very heavily involved, by the way, into like low riding. All my friends were Hispanics, and I was all of that stuff. That was my guys. And I got involved in that, and it ended up into some very touch and go situations where, I mean, we ended up in gunfights at some point. And I was like, I can't be doing this. This is crazy. Like one of the times we were literally in a gun shootout, and I was like, I can't do this. I got to get out of this. This is not my thing. So that was the first compelling piece. Like, I'm not going to die here through this.
Right.
So then I got really plugged in with working. Again, I got to kind of go back. Only way I actually made money at the time at 15 was that I worked with my friend's dad, who was a contractor who would pay me under the table at the time to go, and he was a sheetrock contractor. So I would go in the houses after all the hangers would hang the sheetrock, and I'd clean up all the scraps, the floor, and get it ready. And so he paid me $6 an hour on the table. And I stayed there working that process until I learned how to do all that. He moved me up. So I learned how to tape and texture. I mean, everything. So, I mean, that was kind of the piece that got that going, right? So I got really good at doing laborious type work, using my hands. And then my brother actually, my older brother was a general contractor in the Bay Area at the time. So I did end up working with him too. And we learned it. I learned it all. I mean, essentially I have all the skills. I could build a house if I wanted to. I don't want to. I really realized that very quickly. I don't want to work hard. That's hard work to me physically. Do I know how to do it? Yes, I do. Do I want to do it? No. So there was a second piece of something compelling to me to figure out I wanted something better in my life. One, I wanted to stay away from guns and bullets. Two, I wanted to find something that was not so physically hard. I wanted to go to work clean and come home clean for once in my life, right?
Yes.
So I did all that, from building houses to even doing freeway work, asphalt, paving, underground dirt work, running heavy equipment. I did all that too. So I did a whole series of that kind of building. And honestly, it was one gentleman that we were doing some houses in a development at one point, and his name was Frank. I'll never forget Frank. Frank had this amazing home. It's like an 8,000 square foot home in this beautiful area called Black Hawk. I don't know for those who know, but it's in the Bay Area, East Bay. It's in by San Ramon and that area. And there's a little development there called Black Hawk, which people like John Madden actually have a house in Black Hawk. So it'll give you an idea for those listening, the caliber of what the houses were like. So Frank had a house in there. It was an 8,000 square foot house. It was beautiful. We were actually doing the work on it though. We were always working on houses in there. And so it was idyllic. We were there working in this environment with all these amazing, luxurious homes and people of high levels, but yet we were doing all the dirty work. Yeah. So it was like, yeah. And we would work on a house for a series of months because it was very large projects, and you get to know these people and befriend them. And Frank was an amazing, nice guy. And every day he'd come home, and he was always in this 3-piece suit with his brand new BMW 7 Series in this house that was an 8,000 square foot home. His wife looked like Barbie, and everything else was like, wow. So there's my third piece. Like, I wanted that life because obviously I was digging trenches in his front yard, doing work in 100-degree weather, dirty. And this guy pulls up in a beautiful car, air conditioned, cleaned all the time, in a 3-piece suit, and has a wife that looks like Barbie. Okay, I want all that. And this house is, I want all that, right? So it was that visual piece, which I think I started to realize later on in life, not at that point, but how I really believe about the law of attraction. What you think about comes about, what you focus on expands. And it's very, very true to this day, because if I told you my entire story of how I even got in this business, it was literally about law of attraction. Every bit of opportunity that I have moved forward in my life was something that inadvertently had come to me because I was thinking about it, but I didn't know it then, but I know it now, that I was thinking about it, I was dreaming about it, I wanted it, and doors often opened, and I never said no ever to any opportunity. You know, people always say you're lucky. Well, that's the definition of luck is when preparation is opportunity, right? So in life, I think our entire life and journey is a total preparation. Everything we're doing in life is preparing us for something, right? The
Mhm.
opportunities will pop up as they do in life.
Mhm.
It's your job to actually take them.
Mhm.
So many of us will let our ego and pride and arrogance and stupidity, yes, I said it, stupidity, get in the way from us actually taking advantage of the opportunity when it shows up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a total believer and follower of that as well. I'd love to hear some examples of
Okay.
that. So tell me some examples of that, of how your life changed when you started saying yes to things and, you know, believing in
Perfect.
manifestation.
Okay, so here's a number one kicker. I actually got hurt on the job physically where I couldn't go work anymore in the job I was at doing labor.
Mhm.
So I got had to go through a temp agency. They put me through a temp agency because the company I was working for had workman's comp, got injured. They put me through a temp agency. And the only thing a temp agency had was indoor, like, clerical work.
Mhm.
So I'm like, all right, screw it, I'll do it. You know, because I had this cast and I couldn't do anything. So I went in and started doing this clerical work. And honestly, I started off working selling. I was on the phone selling to old people prescription drugs, 90-day supplies of prescription drugs. That was our good. Yeah, right. Was it you sold them 90 days to 120 days prescription of drugs, right? So, but again, interestingly, my number one thing or number two thing was I wanted to get to work, go to work clean, and come home clean for once in my life, right? And I
Mhm.
finally got into an environment where I went to work clean, dressed up, and I stayed in a climate controlled environment, which was air conditioning in summer, and
Mhm.
I came home clean. So there was my first thing, like, oh, again, it didn't really dawn on me, but it was like, all right.
Mhm.
And I met a person there, a good friend of mine who her name was Sandra at the time, and Sandra was sitting 2 desks over from me, and she was this person who was very similar to my personality, super like, and so she says, um, I'm gonna go to this job interview at lunch, and I'm gonna go sell cell phones because there's more money in it, and maybe we should go check it out. I'm like, okay, again, sure, let's go. So on lunch, and it happened to be for actually at the time, it wasn't even Verizon, it was AirTouch Cellular, because that's before Verizon. And it was brick phones, it was all the big old school stuff, right? Not everybody had the cell phones like that, the smartphones. So
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, come on in. It was a group interview, and they're like, yeah, you can come do it, make some great commissions. I'm like, all right, let's go. Quit that job when we started selling cell phones, and actually, it was actually a great success. I mean, I started making more money again indoors with a headset on, doing telesales. I didn't realize I had an actual voice, like I can sell, and interesting. But there's a piece though. We talked earlier offline, right, about all the tragedies that happen before that become catalyst or trajectory push you to other areas, right? That
Right.
ultimately you think are
Mhm.
horrible at time.
Like the worst thing that could happen to you.
And there's a spell there for a little bit where I went through a horrible marriage and a horrible divorce. Where, yeah, to be completely transparent, my ex-wife at the time had cheated on me 3 times, and the third time, ironically, was the time where I actually caught her in her own house, in her own bed, kind of scenario, the ones you see
Oof.
on TV. Um, Heartbreaking, heart wrenching for sure. At that point, dealing with a lot of trauma I had in my life already. The
Yeah.
trauma of, abandonment and all that other good stuff. Then you get married and you pour everything into this life again, and you have kids, and then it's like, and everything was taken care of. So yeah, I went through some major, major challenges in my life where I
Mhm.
was like completely, and that was kind of the thing moving forward again, where I was just a different person.
Mhm.
Um, I actually ended up leaving and going and enlisting myself in the military for the short span in that. This is like a Forrest Gump movie.
Yeah.
Um, I did, because I wanted to figure out how I could kill somebody legally and get away with it. And it was
Wow.
military in my mind. That's where my mind was at, to be true. That it was not in any way, shape, or form in a positive place at all. So
That is
just
not the
imagine
Chris
being
I
the
know
gut.
today.
No, not at all.
No.
In fact, people don't even know me back then. Before that, I was, yeah, it was night and day, complete polar opposite of who I am today.
Sounds like a pretty angry person.
Angry with life, angry with myself, um, and just completely abandoned to where,
Yeah.
it was like a hypersensitive level of abandonment now. Codependency, insecurity, low self-worth, all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So, I mean, it's like being in the gutter. Again, you are set up more for becoming a statistic more than I was ever becoming to where I'm at today, right?
Right.
Um, So yeah, that was kind of just that's a piece that I want to make sure of. Is like, that's definitely a part of my journey that back then was the worst thing I ever kind of thought happened in my life. But today, probably one of the best things that I think could happen in my life in hindsight. And I'll say that way later on. But so yeah, moving forward, I started selling cell phones. I was sitting in a room actually with a buddy of mine who used to every day at lunchtime, he'd have pizza and he'd be studying for his real estate exam. And I'd come in and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm studying for my real estate exam. Well, what's that? He's like, oh, I'm going to be a realtor. I'm like, well, what's that do? He goes, we sell houses. I'm like, okay, cool. Put my headset back on, started selling cell phones, right? Didn't think twice of it. But then there's a guy that sat 3 desks to the right of me, who his name was Tony. And Tony one day says at lunch, hey, dude, I'm leaving. I'm quitting. I'm like, what? Dude, we're making like $6,000 to $8,000 a month. You kidding me? This is great money. We're in an air-conditioned room, summertime, it's consistent business. Like, what else do you want in life? And he's like, oh, I'm going to go start doing this thing with mortgages. I'm all, what's mortgages? He goes, well, when you buy a home, you get mortgage, people get the finance. I go, okay, cool. Well, good luck with that. And maybe I'll see you around. Says, cool. 2 years passed by. 2 years. And I was supposed to go out with a buddy of mine named Tony, and we were going to go have drinks on a Friday night. And so I call Tony on my phone. Well, it happens to be the wrong Tony. It happens to be the Tony that left 2 years ago to do mortgages. No, that was real. That was supposed to happen. Again, law of attraction. So I answer the phone. I'm like, hey, we still gonna meet for drinks? He says, who is this? I'm like, it's Chris. He says, who is this? I'm like, it's Tony. He goes, oh, he says, yeah, it's Tony, the guy who left 2 years ago. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on, man? How are you been? He says, oh, I've been great. He says, oh my God, I make so much money now. You got to come in for an interview. He says, come in on Monday. It's Friday. He says, come in Monday. I promise you, I'll let you interview with my boss. Okay. I never said no. Okay, cool. Monday comes around, lunchtime, I go interview with this guy. Complete boiler room mentality, dude. Walk in, this is a boiler room straight up. Vin Diesel should have been in there. Like, it looks like boiler room. And I walk in there, the guy's a hard press sales guy. He walks in and says, hey, so you met Tony, let me interview you, ask you questions, blah, 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 blah. You want to start? I'm like, yeah, this sounds cool. You start tomorrow. I'm like, I'm on my lunch break. I'm like, I got to go back and give him my 2 weeks notice stuff. And he says, oh, I get it. He says, no worries. This is not for you. Obviously, when you're getting ready to be in a position to make 20 grand a month, you can let me know. And I was like, what hell you say? I'm like, no, I'm ready to make 20 grand. So my buddy Tony went to his desk, came back, and he actually bought his first check that he got, made $20,000. He put it in a frame, and he says, here you go. He goes, look, Chris, it's real. It's real. I'm like, oh, crap. I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'll be here tomorrow. So I went back that day. I went back to lunch, handed my keys, my badge to my boss. I quit. He was like, God, you just went to lunch. What happened? And I said, I got to do this. I got to try this thing, man. This is an opportunity. Again, understand this, though. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't even put Frank's story together with this opportunity of mortgages.
Right.
Which is what Frank did. I forgot, know if I tell you that story, but I asked Frank what he did for a living, and Frank said, I'm a mortgage broker.
No, you didn't mention that.
I didn't
That's
mention
amazing.
That. And I says, a mortgage broker, huh? And he says, and he told me what it was, but I really just like blah, 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 blah. I just saw him, his car, his suit, his wife, and his house. I wanted all that. Again, law of attraction, right? What you visualize on, you makes become real. So at that point, didn't realize again, 2 and 2 together, like, oh, mortgages might be the beginning of my mortgage game. So I go and start doing mortgages. I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't know what an adjust rate mortgage was. Didn't know what a fixed mortgage was. Didn't know what points was. Didn't know anything. The guy says, take the yellow notepad, go sit next to your boy Tony, put a headset on, listen. You got 3 days to listen. The 4th day, you're going to get on the phone. Okay, boom. 3 days listening to him, writing a bunch of notes, went studying, and then day 4, I got on the phone. And yeah, I started crushing it. We started doing it with refinancing. We refinanced. We were a direct lender. We had in-house lending. We had our own stuff, so it was perfect. We did our own stuff, underwriting. It was such an easy gig, and I made more money than I ever dreamed of.
Right,
it was crazy. And so there goes the start of that role. But then Tony, the guy who got me to go there, probably I think it was 8 months into it, says to me at lunch he's quitting. I'm like, what? Wait a second. He goes, oh yeah, I'm gonna go work for a broker. He says, what's a broker? He goes, oh, well, you can charge points in the back end. We get to shop the loan. We're a direct lender, so we're only, we're stuck to this, but I can make way more money. I'm like, all right, good luck. Let me know how it goes. 2 months later, he calls me up, tells me I need to come do this brokerage gig with him. I left the next day. I'm like, cool. Again, never said no to anything. I'm like, okay. Because in my mind, it was like, what do I got to lose?
Right.
I got nothing to lose. This was all a journey for me. Like everything was a learning lesson and a journey for me. And it was yet to be undecided what it was going to look like. That was still my job to make that look like that. And I was like, screw it. I'm going to keep doing this. And so I did, went there and we crushed it over there. We started doing brokerage loans. I was charging points at the back. We did great. It was amazing. I did that for another year or so. Then I run into a guy at a 24-hour fitness gym at 11:30 at night one night, years later. And the guy actually used to sell cell phones to be back at AirTouch Cellular. And he was a young kid at the time, 18 years old, smart as a whip though. And he's like, oh my God, Chris, I haven't seen you in years. I'm like, I know, it's been several. What are you up to? He goes, well, I'm working at Remax. I've been selling real estate, crushing it. I'm like, dude, I've been doing mortgages. I've been doing that and crushing it too. We're doing great. He goes, we should grab coffee. I'm like, all right. So next week we made the appointment, got coffee. He says, you know what? We should open up our own gig. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, I do real estate, you do mortgages. Why don't we put it together on this, do our own thing? Why are we giving all this money away? I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but okay. I'm just very like, if whatever I'm doing singly on my own, I'll just kind of create ways to do it with more people, right? So we did. We started off with a little 900 square foot office. We had 5 desks in the foyer of this office. We had 2 little rooms in the back, one was for me, one for my partner. And we had 5 guys on the phone back in the day. If you remember, title leads from escrow companies.
Yeah.
Stacks and stacks of title leads. We'd get them for free. And each guy was on the phone calling 8 hours a day. And if they wanted to refinance their loan, it came to me. If they wanted to purchase, sell, or buy, they went to my buddy. And we were doing great. Remember, this was previous to 2006, 7, 8, and 9. And everything was different in 2000. So we started going at that, and it did really well. Again, still had not resonated that I was at the point of Frank. I had gotten to the point where I opened up my own mortgage company.
Pretty successful. From an outsider, they look at you, they're like, wow.
Well, for anybody, for anybody that even knew me, right? I mean, if I knew my childhood friends, the one that knew me back when I was a kid as a Jehovah's Witness, going and struggling through all that crap and going through all my issues of my broken up marriage and going through the military and figuring out how to get through that suppression and coming out to this completely different person, because I was that person now is the person that you know today. I came out reborn as this individual who was on fire. And, I had a why that was pretty remarkable. A great conversation today with Sean Koska and Amin about, if the why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough. And my why ultimately in the beginning was my dad, because my dad was a POS in my mind. And, he was always the guy who ridiculed me, not even ridiculed, but he definitely degraded me down to the point where I was never going to be worth anything. Wasn't good enough. There was no support there emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually at all. And so my why was to prove him wrong. And it was a sadistic sociopath why, for sure. It's not healthy. No. But it was my why. It was my fire that got me going. And it pushed me always constantly because I just wanted to prove him wrong. But the irony of all of it is not once in his entire life has he ever seen anything that I've done. Wow. Nothing. So, people look at that story and like, well, was it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, 1,000%. I wouldn't have changed it for anything. Right. So
has your why changed since then?
Yes, it had to have changed, because when I looked at that and I realized, and it was funny is at the point, because when I was there, we did a grand opening for our company, our shop, me and my buddy. And it was so funny. Okay. We moved from a 900 square foot office, by the way, to we were walking out one Friday and the property manager was walking out of this corner office space and we're asking, hey, what's that? And he goes, oh, we're remodeling a place. He goes, you guys want to look at it? We're like, sure. It was 4,000 square feet. It was massively huge. And it was like a big jump. We're like, sure. We had no idea what we were doing either, but we took it on. And boy, by the time we were done with the last paint on the wall and the last cup of coffee and the sugar sweetener, I mean, we were 250 grand out of each pockets. It was almost $500,000 that it cost us to get that place going. Phone lines, tech lines, computer lines, phones, desks, everything, right? It was ridiculous. And I wasn't ready for that. But it was like,
But you
okay,
thought nothing is going to stop you at this point, right? Like you just keep going up and up and up. And
yeah. I mean, honestly, it was more like I had no clue of what to expect. I guess
right.
that makes sense, right? Like, what doesn't hurt you won't kill you,
Hmm.
right? Kind of like, okay, I have no idea what the freaking heck I'm doing, but whatever.
Right.
I come from no money. I've been broke and homeless. What's the worst thing happen? Be broke and
Right.
homeless again? I've already
Yeah.
been there. So who cares? Let's do it again. And
Hmm.
so I guess I had that mentality of I just don't care.
Right.
Um, and I just like I just knew that I was kind of perpetually moving forward progressively, and just me saying yes to everything,
Mhm.
which in hindsight probably wasn't good to some other things that I'm not saying yes to, but there's a lot of things I said yes to that ultimately led me to like, okay, it's getting better, it's getting better, it's getting better. And let's be clear with this too, that those listening. Every time I said yes to something, there was always a negative that was attached to it. It was
Right.
just my behavior or my determination to determine how that was going to let it affect me.
Hmm.
You know, oh my God, everything was $3,000 this, $3,000 that, $6,000 this. Oh, right?
Right.
There was a lot saying yes to something was not always good.
Yeah.
And so financially, it was like, oh my God, I'm going broke already. And we haven't even started this office. So yeah, to get to answer your question, I guess what it was we had this grand like ribbon cutting opening to our office, and my buddy actually had his parents that showed up. His parents, we had a bunch of our friends, we invited all our friends and colleagues and stuff, and he invited his parents. Obviously, my parents were around, so it was like he invited his parents, and it was like it was really cool to see that because I was like, wow, and they were so proud of him, like, oh my God, look what you built, what you've done, and to see that was like kind of like for me, like, okay, that was missing for me. So that was that part where I'm telling you, is like my why was now okay. My I built all this, done all this, accomplished all this, but my parents don't want to see any of it, right? So it was kind of that part that made me like, all right, I need to change some stuff here because that why is dead to me.
Hmm.
You know, as my dad is kind of dead to me. I haven't talked to my dad in 34, 35 years. So, you know, I don't whatever. I'm accustomed to that. That's just part of my life. So this is where it all came for, you know. And again, even at that moment that night of that grand opening and seeing the office, nothing resonated with me as far as putting two and two together of, oh my God, Chris, you actually made it. You did what Frank did. You did what Frank did. Like you created what Frank did.
Hmm.
And yeah, you know, back in 2000, it was a different era. We were making money hand over fist.
Yeah. It was pretty easy back then. It was
Yeah,
nice. Life was good.
it was good.
It
I mean,
was
we
good.
were all into the NEGAM loans, the, you know, no income,
Mhm.
no asset loans, the stated loans. I mean, we were doing loans for everybody and business was good.
Yeah.
So I created a lifestyle that I never would imagine in a million years I ever thought I would have,
Yeah.
you know? Um, but what comes up must go down,
Mhm.
especially if you don't be responsible with it.
Yeah.
And I was not responsible at all because I never had any upbringing or training or guidance from any of my parents or people I have looked up to about how to manage money,
Right.
you know, which is why you see majority of these successful NFL players and superstars who make millions, and the next thing you know, they're flat broke.
Right.
You know, you if you're not trained and learn the value of how to respect money, because money is nothing but energy. If you
Right.
can't respect the energy, then that is a challenge for you that is not going to allow a good flow.
Yeah, there's a whole conversation we can have about, thinking in abundance versus scarcity and how you're raised. If a lot of people in our generation were raised that money is bad, money's
Yeah.
not good. It's only for people that it's like unreachable, and it's only for the people who aren't good. And that's not the truth. We're meant to be abundant in all areas of our life. And God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, wants us to have it all. And there's enough money for everybody, but it has to flow in
Mm-hmm.
and out. And you figured that out.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I think it's a constant learning experience.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think it's all relative to where we're at in life because ideally, yes, you have to go through bad experience like that where I lost everything I could have, you know, materially. To the point where at the time, I ended up moving in with an ex-girlfriend into her brother's house, sharing a room. a bedroom. Like I went from a 6-bedroom house into a bedroom, and my vehicles getting repossessed, everything gone. I mean, it was bad. Just poor planning. Um,
So how was your mindset at that point?
oh my
Was
God,
it still
dead.
like,
No,
yeah,
dead,
it was
dead.
bad.
I wanted to jump off a bridge. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, and it's understandable to see why people get to the place where that depression is real.
Yeah.
I will never take that from anybody. I think that is a disease that can creep up on you, and if not taken care of, can very easily take lives of so many people.
Yeah.
So it happens, and even happens to the best of people. I mean, people that you know walking through life that you could bump shoulders with, you have no idea that they 2 weeks ago could have thought about taking their life. You
Yeah.
don't know that. You have no idea.
Yeah. I always try to tread lightly on when I talk to people, and especially if they're angry or mad. And I know it might seem like it's toward me. It's
Mhm.
not about me. It's something's
No.
going on in their world that I have no idea. So I really try to be empathetic toward whatever it is, even though I don't know what's happening. Because everyone goes through stuff, right? So you're down in the dumps, you're living at a friend's house, you're thinking this is it. I am never getting back what I lost. And really, if you look at it, it's all material things, right?
Money again, right?
Money again, a house, cars, things like that, that as you get older, you realize really it doesn't mean as much as relationships and friendships and community as when you're in your 20s and 30s. You think it's everything. So how'd you get out of that?
Well, you know what? I can't even go back and pinpoint and say like, oh my God, there was a light switch that went off and things changed for me 180 degrees. I don't know that. I can't even pinpoint that. I just know that I was definitely in a place where mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I was completely just dormant. I was dead, and I thought the world was coming to an end. Um, and but then I've always been in this place. I told you, like I come from having nothing either, so it wasn't as if it wasn't new to me, right? And you understand where you come from, but yet you don't ever want to go back there again. It's interesting when people think about that. So it was like this reinstilling this fire in me again of realizing, God, I'm better than this. I deserve better than this. And that was a constant piece and conversation of me doing that. And I just, at that point, I realized I needed to get back into the game again. I actually went to go work at a regular job too. I was like, screw this. I'm not doing this shit anymore. I'm not doing any more, no more mortgage, no more anything. I'm done. And I'm like, I'm gonna go work at a regular job. And I lasted probably 3 days at a regular job and I quit. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like I have so much, I've built all this here and I'm here working for this corporate company telling me when to go to lunch and I'm capped on how much money I can make. Like this is ridiculous. I want to lose my mind. So I just like I got to get back into this. And so I got back into just relationships again. And I plugged into real estate, got back into doing just straight real estate, no more mortgages at the time. And this was like around 2012-ish. I mean, I took a while because I mean, everything went down on 8, 9. And I took a couple of years of just like serious depression. I'm not gonna lie. It took a while to get out of it. And just fumbling like through life, just fumbling, literally like, whoa. And just what do I want to do when I grow up? Don't know. Life sucks. All that crap, you know? And so I finally got my head out of my ass and I just like, let's do this. And I started doing real estate, plugged in, went to work for a little local boutique here in town. Actually not here. I'm in Hawaii now, but I'm back in California. And I just started plugging in to groups and people again. And I joined a local association at the time, which was our Placer County Association of Realtors. And I'm like, I'm just gonna be around a bunch of people. I'm gonna start getting because I like to lead people. I need the energy again. That's who I am. I love that. And I feed off that. So I realized again, proximity is power. And me sitting at home was not the business. It wasn't. So I need to get around people. So I started doing that and started doing real estate again. I get plugged in a little bit here, a little bit, made some new friends, made some new stuff, relationships built. And then I jumped into a local committee there, which is the YPN group, and I started plugging into the young professional. And I took that for a run, and I had a lot of fun. I made a lot of new friends and I had new connections. And that turned into something huge for me, and created a massive national event for YPN that to this date still hasn't been matched. So I created an amazing revenue event that we raised. I'd say it was running for 11 years. It ran for 11 years consecutively. This past year was, I think, our last one, but I'd say collectively for the last 11 years, we easily raised $700,000-800,000 with that one event, just doing stuff by generating revenue to put the event on and profiting after we paid, so easily probably that kind of money, which has never been done. I mean, having 1,000 people show up at an event, it just never been done before. So that was kind of put me on the map, and that's what got me recruited by Keller Williams, by the way.
Okay. So that's how that happened.
2013, Keller Williams came after me and saw what I did for that YPN group, and it was like, wow, we love what you did. You grew that like just huge. We love the energy you created, and we'd love for you to come work for us. And it's funny, initially, the lady came to recruit me just to sell real estate. And halfway through the conversation, she stops, closes her book, and says, you know what? I don't want you as a realtor. I want you to come run one of my market centers.
Wow.
I think you'd be better at that role. I'm like, okay. Again, that doesn't stop.
Again,
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Had no idea. Obviously, it was an experience. I ran that Keller Williams for 3.5 years. Had about 180-ish kind of agents there at all times, and it was a good experience. I learned a lot. I mean, if anything, it was just a learning curve to figure out more ways. That when my mortgage company that failed, I really had no idea what I was doing back then. I was like running by the seat of my pants.
Right.
And here, coming to Keller Williams, they had, Gary Keller is a brilliant mad scientist. He's a visionary. He's created such an amazing platform that created an opportunity for us to take that and people to franchise it. And so, it was like you learned a whole lot about business and economics and everything in running your business, knowing numbers, lead and lagging indicators, that kind of stuff, all the things to run your business. And to look at like a true business person versus just a realtor. I hate to say that, but just a realtor who goes out and chases linear business. Just running your business like a real business. And so I got that from that. But 3.5 years of that, I was like, I can't do this anymore. It was probably one of the most underappreciated, overworked roles ever in that model. And I was never going to ever get out from underneath it. It was ultimately, I was just going to build someone else's little vacation spot, never my own. And I always wanted to, from day one, I realized two things, and I learned this from Frank, and it's all about leverage and scalability. If you can't figure out how to leverage and scale whatever you're doing, you're doomed. It's a job. You will work that job forever, period. There's no slicing that any other way. So we run a linear business in real estate. It runs off of that. The only way to get away from it, because something needs to push it or drive it constantly, whether it's you or systems, that something must drive it. And I wanted to figure out ways to get my freedom back. That's why I started my company. Like, I wanted to be that guy. I didn't want to be the people at the bottom. I wanted to be the one at the top so that I can gain freedom and have what I wanted. And I thought that was going to happen through Keller Williams, but it wasn't. But it was, again, a roadmap, the next step in my journey to learn more, to build up what I need to build up and move on to the next step. Like, everything is always about the next step. So yeah, I still, again, honestly, didn't ever realize, even still to that point, that I was like, my God, I actually was living Frank's life. Like, I didn't even realize I was living Frank's life. And so I thought I was done with the franchise world. And then, I didn't, one of the guys that owned the Intero, which is a Berkshire Hathaway model. And he was in town there, kind of wanted me to come help him build or rebuild one of his market centers that was dying. So I told him I'd give you 6 months to give it a shot. I definitely was so burnt out from Keller Williams that I was like, I don't think I have it in me, but okay, I'll give it a shot. And so I did. In 6 months, literally, I was like done, shook hands, walked away. I just couldn't do it anymore. I realized that was not going to be what I
wasn't for you.
No, it was the same thing, different cup, right? It was the same thing, just different label. I was building somebody else's legacy. Wasn't building mine by any means. And all the hard work, time, energy, and effort was not going to work in my favor ever. It was like just enough to keep me going, but never enough for me to ever get to where I wanted.
Right. It's discouraging when you're building somebody else's business and you're not building your own. And
absolutely. Yeah. It is like, oh, what am I doing? God, what am I doing? But then most people, you think about it, the reality is most people don't even think like that.
No,
Most people are okay with just jumping into a groove and driving an already pre-made vehicle that's made by somebody else to go drive their business. It's like, it's so
right,
easy to do that. It's,
right.
you know,
And I don't think it's easy. I think it makes your life harder. You know, you're working for somebody else, you clock in, you clock out, you have to do everything somebody else wants you to do. Even if you don't believe that it's the right thing, you're still having to do what somebody else's dream. All that money comes in and you only get this portion of it while they're growing this massive, you know, massive amount of money for themselves. And I'm not built like that. You're not built like that. There are
no.
people that are okay with that. I always want more, you know.
Right. 100%. I mean, if you ever read people that read books, you know, the Robert Kiyosaki Cash Flow Quadrant really explains it, right? The ESBI model, exactly why we have employees, self-employed business owners, and investors. Why the world is broken down to 4 quadrants. We need people that want to be employees. We do.
Yeah.
Because without them, we wouldn't have somebody pour our coffees at Starbucks. We wouldn't have somebody bag my groceries at Safeway. And I'm not saying that in a negative and demeaning way. I'm saying it is that's how the world works.
Right.
We
There's
need those
something
people
out there for everybody.
for everybody. That's not me,
Right.
or nor you. And you know,
Mhm.
we have a bigger why or bigger dream or vision of where we want to be at. And I would say the root of it, honestly, for mine is I'm lazy. I don't want to work. That's the
Yeah.
truth. I mean, Dylan talks about it best. Like, he creates system because he's lazy. He doesn't want to do it twice. I want to create a system where I can build something up because I don't want to work. I just be honest, I don't want to work.
Well, you said
Well, I
that from
want
the
my financial,
beginning.
right? I don't. So yeah, I mean, here we are. So that was my thing, you know. And Terra was done, and then I was gonna jump in and open my own shop again in 2016, but that was quickly watered out by EXP, where I'm at now. You know, 2016 we introduced EXP, and it was the ultimate opportunity to leverage and scale my business to the highest level I possibly could with the least amount of capital risk investment ever on the planet Earth.
And you're part owner of this corporation. You get to run your company the way you want to run it. And it's doing very well, it looks like.
It's doing great. You know, it's an opportunity to now, like I said, I've officially moved to Hawaii, but this is a place, you know, again, we got to go back to every situation in life. There is a place and a journey and why you're going through it. I was very, very, very comfortable in my life in Sacramento for many, many years where I was at living. Because I joined EXP in 2016, and for the first, you know, now we're here 8 years now, right? Almost 8 years, 7 years. I don't know. Hold about math again. 7, 8 years. And I should be a lot farther along. I should be like, I mean, I would say definitely farther than most, but with my talent and my abilities, and not in an arrogant or egotistical way, just that I know I have a lot to offer and value and skill sets that I haven't even put myself to work like I should. Because I was very, very, very comfortable with life. And when you get into a place in life that's comfortable, we all know that it's very dangerous.
Very.
But, you know, I needed to meet people in my life. And I did. As you know, I met Marissa, who was an amazing person. You know her. Love her to death. She got me out of my comfort zone. And I'm indebted to her for the rest of my life for that. Because if I had not met her and gone through that journey, I would still be in my place in Sacramento, probably living my life and being very, very comfortable, which would be to the detriment of my demise. And there's this amazing mothership of EXP opportunity that's been landed in my lap. And I realized that I'm the only one that really hasn't taken full advantage of it. It's sad, but it's true. There's like so many other reasons like that I'm learning every day, because I spent this year in January this year, finally, is like I wanted to really figure out what my why, my purpose was, because I didn't have real clarity on my purpose. And that was frustrating me because I didn't have a drive, a reason of fulfillment to me. And I knew that. And so I really plugged into doing a lot of my stuff for my self-help and self-care starting this year in January of 2023. And I have not stopped doing that. And now we're September, 9 months into this, and I've done it religiously every day. And I have seen changes in me, but also eye-opening experiences of like, wow, Chris, really? This is what you're at right now? And this is the best part of your life, because once you get to this point and you become aware of your inefficiencies, is the opportunity for you to finally take them on and tackle them. And I'm at a place in my life where I'm seeing a consistently repeated over and over again behavior that has got me to a place where I'm at. And you need to be the right people, the right time, the right place, the right circumstance to get you there. And you guys are perfect at you, Eric, Dylan. I can name hundreds of you guys. I love every one of you guys that have changed my life dramatically. It's just the people in my life and the things, opportunities, and not all of it's been blessings. There's been a lot of heartache,
Yeah.
a lot of heartache, And again, like we mentioned before, things that you think are the end of the world, and
Right.
you're like, it's heartbreaking. Like, oh my God, really, God, why?
Yeah.
But I am here now, which if I put this into context, I wasn't even supposed to be in Hawaii until January of 2024. I wasn't going to come to the first of the year,
Yeah.
but things happened, obviously, that closed doors for me and other doors opened. And I am a firm believer right now where I'm at that those were required. God had a plan for me to get here. This was my chapter where I was supposed to be at. It wasn't going to be in Roseville and Sacramento. That was not my chapter. I'm 32 years there in Sacramento. And it was just, my time was done.
Yeah.
And yes, you have to lose people in your life, unfortunately, and lose things and relationships in life to move forward and progress. And as painful as that is, it's called life. And you do it, and you don't ask questions because you believe in firm hearts that God's got a better plan for you, and things are going to work out the way they're supposed to work out.
Right. That was a hard thing for me to learn, is that, relationships, they have seasons. I have always thought, well, this person's been in my life for 20 years. This person's been in my life for 30 years. I'm not aligned with them anymore. And when I go and I'm with them, I don't feel good about myself anymore. So making those changes, that's probably one of the hardest things, is when you have to pivot, and sometimes saying goodbye to people forever doesn't mean that you don't miss them. You can miss them, but you just know that it's not healthy anymore. So it's a hard lesson, but I think the only way to grow is to go through that.
100%. Well, your title is perfect. The show is perfect. Beyond boundaries. Boundaries. That is like the number one word that every human being has challenges with.
Yeah, I lived so many years in a cage, that, an invisible cage, and I had no idea. I was the prisoner, but I was also the person that was the capturer. Like, I kept myself in the cage. And with this show, our whole purpose is to get it out there that you can do anything that you want to do. You have the right. It is your duty to wake up every day and decide who you're going to be that day. And if you don't have an ego and you're doing good things for other people and you're giving back, you can have anything that you want in life. And even breaking an arm or having an abusive childhood, or whatever that tragedy is that you think is the worst thing in the world that could ever happen to you, doors open. And it's really sometimes the pivot or the shift that you need in life to do what your whole purpose is in life. And that's really to give back, I believe.
I love what you said about that, because I can piggyback on that. It's your duty. I don't think people
It's your
look
duty.
at it. It's your duty. And that really resonated with me, obviously, back in 2021. I coming back from that COVID case of almost dying in the hospital. And now I've really reflected on life and realizing how important life is, that it could be gone tomorrow. Tomorrow's never promised. And I should appreciate things more than before. But now I really take it farther when I add the whole level of purpose. Everybody was put on this planet for a purpose. Every human being. And I swear that people don't realize that. God made everybody intricately different for a reason. You got a purpose. I got a purpose. Everybody's got a purpose. But none of us ever really tap in. I want to say none of us. That's wrong. Majority of us never really tap in to what that purpose is, because we're so caught up with all the crap and shit in our life that we fail to look at everything face value. And when you say it's your duty, because we're given a specimen. I call it the body. The human body is the most remarkable specimen on this planet. Never can be duplicated. I don't care how smart man is. They'll never duplicate the intricacies and the workings of the human body, ever. It is the most remarkable thing on this planet to date. And it is yet interesting that as humans, we do almost everything to deteriorate it.
Yeah.
drink too much, eat too much, smoke too much, unhealthy, don't work out, don't read, don't feed our mind with positive things, don't work on affirmations. Like so many things that we do not do to tune our bodies up to be at its fullest potential. It is our duty. It's our freaking duty.
It's our freaking duty.
God gave us this amazing body. It's like us being handed a Ferrari and taking it through a dirt field and running it through a mud bog and a dune buggy.
Yeah, you'd never do that.
No,
you would never do that.
Never do that.
Yeah, and we listen to that little voice inside our head, and we believe that that's the truth, and it is the farthest thing from the truth. That little voice in our head is our ego talking, and it's that fear, and you can't live in fear. You have to live in a state of love. And I love how you said probably 10 times you didn't know what you were doing. Every time you hit a new thing in your life, you're like, I didn't know what I was doing, but you always said yes. If you listen to that little thing in your head, that I'm sure the voice in your head said, Chris, what the hell are you doing? You can't do this. You don't know how to do this. You don't know what a mortgage is, and you're going to sell mortgages. You could have listened to that voice over and over and over. And you know where you would be today? You would be working as a contractor or a handyman in somebody else's house, wishing that you had their life, but you didn't do that.
No, totally. And the truth is, I had to think differently, because the biggest kicker for me is I just kept thinking in my mind, I wanted money. Let's just be, I wanted money. Like I wanted Frank's life. That's what I wanted. And to me, Frank's life meant freedom.
Yeah.
Frank's life meant financial freedom and the ability to have whatever I wanted to have. I've always wanted that.
Right.
And I would say innately, if we probably put 1,000 people in a room and we asked the same question, everybody would say yes and raise their hand. Who wants to be financially free and have all the time and money together, right? Collectively. I don't think anybody would say no to that.
Right.
But then try to ask everybody, all right, well, here's what we got to do. Here's the curriculum you have to do for the next 6 to 8 months every day to get yourself to a place in which you can start to see some momentum in that.
Right.
They're like, what? No. It's this self-gratifying, like instant gratification thing. I want it tomorrow, but I want to work for it.
And they think that they get into manifestation and the law of attraction. And they think that it's all about, I picture myself there. That's not how it works. You have to take action, because we are co-creators with the universe. It's not the universe is going to create something and hand something to us. We are co-creators. And if we don't do that, that's when the universe slaps us in the head and says, no, I'm going to break your arm to force you to do something else. And that's what life's all about.
So just when you think you have control and you think you know what you're doing, God will smack you in the face and make you humble. And that's what it is, right? It's like you go back on this path of, oh, it's my way. I know it's right. I know I got the right way. God is I know what I'm doing, right? And every time I would do that, something not good would come from it. Right. And like, God, again? Yeah. But that was my fault, because how many times has he told me no? But yet I forced the envelope of, I think that the biggest challenge in life was that God gave us, free will. Yeah. God gave us free will, ultimately, I think, to see and test us, to see what we would do with life. Right. And as much as it's a blessing, it's also a curse. Because the free will that we have, I think, innately allows us to make the most stupidest decisions in the entire universe, and repeatedly over and over and over again. Like the definition of insanity, right? Doing things over and over again, expecting a different result is complete insanity. And that's where I was at too. I mean, trust me, all the story I'm telling you right now, I can tell you all the highlights and the glory points of where I've graduated to and what I've done. Yes, I'm not in prison. No, I'm not dead. Yes, there's a lot of things I'm not, and I am in a better place, gratefully. But I'm still challenged, which is why every day I have to still get up and do my affirmations, my meditation, my journal, my reading. Every day I got to feed my mind with something positive, because the moment I stop doing it, oh, trust me, the dark shit comes crawling back out again. 100%. The inadequacies, right? The lack of self-worth, the lack of disbelief, constantly. I have to wake up every morning and tell myself I'm amazing. Yeah. That was one of the unique things. There's some people that I always said, God bless, like Marissa was one of the girls that wake up every morning and just matter of fact, do it. Everything, she had zero doubt in her mind. I had to wake up every morning and I had to convince myself that I was awesome and that I'm amazing and that I'm worth and I'm good enough. Whereas people like her, and I got some other people here that I talk to, and like, they're like, oh yeah, that's how I work.
Yeah.
There's some people have it.
Well, it goes back to your childhood, that subconscious, that it's embedded in you and you don't even know it's there. Yeah. It's that I have it too, and it's an effort, and it's work every single day. It's affirmations, meditations, it's self-positive talk, celebrating the little wins. It's not easy for a lot of us that have, have been told certain things in their lives, or, been abandoned, or, whatever happened.
100%.
Some of us have to work at it, but I believe that if you work at it, life is amazing when you figure that out, right?
Oh,
just
so rewarding. So rewarding.
So good.
Yeah, but it takes some going through the mud. It takes you going through the ditches and trenches of life. It goes through darkest moments of your life. It goes through parts where you don't want to be at, where you're alone. And success comes from that. Success, people, they say lonely at the top. It is, because you're doing stuff that nobody wants to do.
Right.
But you get celebrated in public what you do in private. Those dark moments when you're hanging out doing shit that nobody wants to do. That's what takes somebody being successful. It is. Absolutely. It's that hard grit, right? And you're going to see very few people that do it too.
But everyone has the ability.
That's the kicker. Everybody has the ability, but then, that's a whole nother conversation you get into is our environment and society and how we're designed ultimately, I think, to keep people in a place in which that facilitates and sets up people for that kind of style. Like why we need people to work at Starbucks, why we need people to work at Walmart, Costco, and Home Depot. Yes, we do. Because everybody has the thoughts of wanting to be successful and living a life of luxury and having the lottery disease, I call it, right? But very few people have it inside them to really do it.
Right. That fire.
Yeah.
So, well, Chris, thank you so much. I could, we could always chat for hours, and we talk all the time, and I love you to death. And I love that you're in Hawaii now, and I love everything that you're doing, and you're such a good guy, and you're such a good person. And are you single right now? I could put your phone number out there.
Single, married to my business. Single. Yes.
Okay.
I'm dating my business right now. Is what I'm dating.
All right. Until that special someone comes along, we'll see what we can do about that.
Yeah. But I'm grateful for you guys too. I love you and Eric. Like, seriously, I know it's been just like, it's a short amount of time, but I feel like I've known you two both for like years. It's like some people you come across like that. Like the day one we met you guys, when me and Dylan came to your office in San Diego the very first time. Instantly clicked off. You guys were just awesome. I love your demeanor, your personality, Eric's too. We just can have a good time and just be normal. But yet you're a powerhouse. You and Eric both together are a powerhouse that I love the energy from. And you yourself, very successful, extremely successful. And you got a story too. So it's the like attracts like. That's what this is great about. And so that's why we vibe. We vibe there. So your vibe attracts your tribe. It does. So I appreciate and love you guys for that too. And thank you for the love you, Chris. You're the best. Awesome. Thanks. Bye.